morning, everyone. Commissioners Court is meeting in special session. Today is Thursday, July 20th, 2017. Item 2, discuss and provide input on the county invocation policy.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. This item we placed on here for discussion with you all based on previous direction the court's given to us. And Ramon Bracamontes, who's with my office, I'd like to bring him up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
He has drafted and prepared an invocation policy based on information and input both from the court and from discussing with the chaplains. So I'd like to let Ramon go through the draft of the policy, which I believe all of you all have received in advance.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, Ramon.
Good morning. And doing research on how other governments do the invocation and what we should do in the past, we have the option of starting any which way you guys want. We pick putting it after the Pledge of Allegiance, which is what most other county entities do. And we are limiting it to the use of our Sheriff's Office chaplain or another law enforcement chaplain, like for the police department or for the Border Patrol. We chose not to open it up to the public and to every chaplain because that is a whole different discussion and legal opinion that we would have to get. We also chose in this draft policy not to include employees who are chaplains or ministers because that is another legal opinion, and if we open it up to one county employee, we have to open it up to all 2,800 employees that might want to give the invocation. So that is a whole different discussion that we would have to have. And in talking to the chaplain Flores at the Sheriff's Department, he is a little bit hesitant. They want to do it, they want to cooperate, they want to help us. He is a little bit hesitant because being here every Monday morning, and there's only 3 of them, they're trying to increase their numbers, but being here every Monday morning would be a burden on them and they can't commit to being here every Monday morning, so we're trying to find alternatives. And one of the alternatives, talking to the Sheriff's Office, that we came up with is doing a video invocation. The chaplains would be here live 80% of the time, but every once in a while they may not be able to show up. Talking to the IT department, to Miguel and Alexis, they said that the quality of a pre-recorded invocation would be good and it would sound well, it would look well on the screens in the commissioner's courtroom meeting area over there. And they would have it ready and on cue in case we get a last minute phone call from one of the chaplains saying, I can't be there this morning, we have it ready to go. And talking to some of you, I know there's a concern with that also, that we may not want to go that way, but this is a draft policy. And we've also reviewed the Sheriff's Office chaplain policy, and it fits in their, per their rules, they can come and do the invocation with us if needed.
Okay. Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate it. Commissioners?
No, thank you, Judge. Thank you for all the work you've been doing, Ramona. I really do appreciate it. I was in contact with Chaplain Flores also, and he basically told me the same thing he's told you. There are some possible Sheriff's Department feeders that would give them access to other chaplains, and hopefully that'll work out. The one thing that I'm very and I discussed it with you, that I'm very strong on, is that we do not have video invocations. If for some reason, in my opinion, if for some reason a chaplain doesn't show up, then we won't have it that day. I don't know what the court's thoughts are on that.
Commissioners, what do you think? Well, you're so far away.
I don't know why. I don't know whose chair this is. I'm being replaced.
So, do y'all have any thoughts on that?
I'm 50-50. I think the problem is if you do it, you have to do it
consistently.
Ironically, religiously. But I really don't like the idea of opening it up to everybody. I really like that. I don't want to become a media circus like some areas where we had. It's open to every religion, so you have the Delta Force photos come in 1 week, and you have the, So I agree with it's chaplains nobody. I agree with. I don't think it will look the same having telecommuters, but I also don't want it to be like well, this week we're doing it, next 2 weeks we're not. I don't want it to create something where it becomes something that takes away from Commissioner's Court, whereas it's a media thing of why we didn't do a prayer that day. And it's my feel until we have a group who can do it continuously every week, we don't start it because I think it would look bad doing it, not doing it, doing it, not doing it.
I agree. Commissioner?
Well, I wasn't here for the last discussion on this, but I'm a religious and spiritual person myself. My opinion is you should keep things kind of separate. I think there are many opportunities for this to look like it's exclusionary, and like I agree with Andrew in the fact that if you open it up, you have to open it up to everybody, and I guess that was a conversation that was had last time. Let's just have the chaplains do it, but there are people that are atheists. There are people that are that have different religions that aren't Christian, and how do you make it so it speaks to everybody's religion? I think that's impossible. I'll go along with the court, whatever the court wants to do, but I think that this is something that we should stay away from.
Kind of a separation of church and state kind of thing?
Yeah.
New idea.
I agree with Commissioner Haggerty. I feel like if we can't consistently have someone every week, it's weird. And then the question is, why wasn't someone here this week? The telecommuting chaplain invocation, I don't see the point. The point is.
What if we get Joel Austin?
So I think until we could find something that is, like a neutral. This is what we're going for. I mean, it's sort of a nice invocation to open with, but not an opening it up to anybody and anything. I just think then we maintain the status quo unless we can find a consistent county-driven invocation giver.
The sheriff's office is trying to increase their numbers in their chaplain program, and if they get to 4, 5, or 6, it will get easier on them, and I can continue checking with them every 2 weeks or so to see how they're doing. They added one more gentleman about 2 weeks ago, so they're trying to increase their chaplain numbers.
And the city, by the way, has, I think Chaplain Ferroni, who is the police chaplain, does it of course they meet on a bi-weekly basis, and they do it very regularly. And there has been occasions when someone else wants to speak, but they haven't had a big problem with that. So let's move forward. I agree that we need to have a good contingency where it's not a hit or miss kind of deal.
All right, let's move on to the next item.
Item 3.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Remy.
Item 3, discuss and take appropriate action to develop guidelines for requests for tax exempt funds by charter schools pursuant to the requirements of Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code.
Okay, Judge Commissioners, this item, we put this together as a recommended policy because we've had some inquiries from charter schools about going on the county's agenda. And when we tried to find a procedure, we could not find a documented procedure of what we do and how we do it. And while I know that when the court has discussed these requests previously, there has been a policy discussion about the philosophy of the court regarding charter schools, and then there has been the legal advice about what the procedure is and what you're actually approving. So we put together, and again, this is Ramon. I'd like to ask him to come up again as well. Ramon put this together for us to talk about what is the procedure and why is it a procedural item, not we try to make it a procedural item versus a philosophy item. Because by voting on this, you're not voting, we believe that when these items come to you, it's a procedural issue for how the school is financed. It's a IRS tax issue for them versus a philosophy issue. So we'd like the court to consider adopting this procedure. So.
We also again in this, we checked with other counties such as Cameron, Hidalgo, Bexar County, and Travis County, where a lot of the charter schools are in South Texas. They have yet to deny any one of these certificates, but they make it very clear that by signing it, it's not an endorsement that the charter school is needed. or an affirmation of it or anything. It's just for construction purposes and for tax incentive purposes for them to be able to build it. There is a thing in the law that says that the highest ranking elected official of that entity can sign it. So this last request came from to build a school within the Socorro city limits. So it is very easily for us to have said, go talk to the Socorro mayor to see if he or she will sign it. The other school is in the county area out in Far East El Paso. It's in the Socorro School District, but it's in the unincorporated county areas, which means the county judge and the commissioners will have to approve it. The city of El Paso has signed a couple of these. The county signed 2 of these in the past, and then 2 of these 2 years ago were held back and denied. So
I think we sent them to the city, didn't we? Is what I recall.
Yes, they were the last one, I think it was in 2013. It was, you all didn't take any action in the city because it was within the city limits.
Yeah.
our policy does clearly say that signing this does not mean an endorsement on the county's part for the school. And it does say that when we get these requests, we will notify the local school district where the charter school is trying to move into that we have gotten the request, so we would have notified Socorro School District in this case right away, which we did.
Thank you for the research, Commissioner Haggard.
I'm a big fan of public school. Went to public school. My kids go to public school. My wife teaches at public school. But I also understand that there's kids who the public school system doesn't work for, and I'm not going to stand in the way of businesses. As long as it doesn't affect us tax-wise, I don't think we have any right to deny it. So I think it makes sense.
Okay, Commissioner.
Just a question, what effect would this have if we do not approve it?
Their bond rate or their interest rate for their construction of the school would go up, it would be higher. Under this, they get to use the same tax breaks that the public school districts use. Otherwise, they don't get those tax breaks. That's all it is a tax break for.
And I'll tell you, I have struggled with this because philosophically I am anti-charter school. My kids are the same as you, Commissioner. My kids are public school educated. We are very, much invested in trying to help our district. But the thing that I struggled with, and I had a conversation with Betsy about this, we have in the past approved them. And other Texas counties, Ramon did the research to see how they handle it. They are fairly kind of routine, kind of a pass-through permission almost. And I feel like, to make a determination, I'll vote yes on this one, but not no on this one. It becomes arbitrary, especially since we have voted in the past to approve. And so, or I have, and this was even before I understood, this was back in, several years ago before I really understood, before I explored my own philosophical opinion about charters. So I think it's best to have a policy, and whatever that policy is, and I think this is a good one, and not make it become meetings about our views on these, our philosophical views on this. So, but I've been thinking about it a lot.
And the policy has 3 keys that they have to be a 501c3 and they have to be eligible for this. It is going to be built in an unincorporated area of the county, which means you all are the highest ranking elected officials in that. And then they have to have a public hearing. And they had the public hearing out here for this one. Nobody showed up. And I researched 4 other counties in the public hearings. No citizen ever shows up to speak for or against it, but they have to have it.
Okay, Commissioners, anything else?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pettis.
I'm sorry for the policies to approve the,
The charter school deal?
as it was written. Oh. Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Haggerty?
Aye.
Judge Escobar?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ramon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ramon.
Item 4, pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, Section 114.023, 114.024, 114.025, and 114.026, please accept the attached presentation and the interim financial report for the month ended June 30th, 2017. The interim financial report is located on the internet.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Lamas, County Auditor's Office. I'm here to present the unaudited interim financial report for the month ended June 30th, 2017. First off, I'm going to show the report that gets published in the El Paso Times every month. It shows the fund balances, revised budget expenditures, encumbrances, and available budget for all of the funds in our county. This is mainly a presentation informational slide. Next up, we're going to talk about revenues. Once again, this first slide is mostly an informational slide. It presents a breakdown by fund type of all revenue collected within the county, both current month and for the whole fiscal year. Once again, general fund is highlighted for easier viewing. Next up is a breakdown of all revenue by source of the general fund. This slide shows the change in revenues compared to the same month of the last fiscal year. For the most part, general fund revenue collections are following a similar trend to last year's collections. However, the next slide will explain the major factors contributing to some of the differences that you see there in the last column. The first one is property tax. Of course, tax receipts increased compared to last year due to new property and property value changes. For the sales and use tax, there was just a higher sales tax revenues. And lastly, for the charges of services category, there was both an increase in the reimbursement rate of the federal prisoner contract and increases in the fees of office for county clerk, district clerk, and sheriff's office due to faster recording within our financial system. In the past, recording of these revenues used to take a couple of weeks. Now it's done within a couple of days.
And that's a result of the new ERP system?
Yes.
And that's an example we talked about yesterday where we're getting data faster.
It's also a change in the process. In my office, we've migrated from the internal audit division to fiscal services, and we take the Odyssey information and we're bringing it straight into the system rather than doing a dump into a subsidiary or researching. We still have research to do after the fact, but definitely we're gaining some efficiencies.
Excellent.
On this one thing I'll bring to your attention is sales and use tax is still up. It's 1.69% up, but it's not up as robustly as it has been in the past. In the past, we've grown at 4, 5, and 6%.
And we addressed this during budget last year because the abatements were being taken out. Last fiscal year, the abatements went straight out of revenues. Now they're going into expenses. So we had a real big difference. It showed that revenues were up because last year was showing down, but it's not really. So the abatements, I guess next fiscal year will be on par and will never be offsetting revenues with abatements, and you'll see the expenses coming through.
So let me make sure I want to ask a question about that if you all don't mind. So on sales and use tax, it's up 1.69%. That's actually up 1.69%, or is it because of these adjustments?
It's actually, if you look at the reports month to month, it shows we're up $1 million. So we gave about $500,000 back last fiscal year, so we had to just for the reporting purposes.
This is the tax.
Qualified
This is
for
the
you.
tax.
That we gave you a letter on sales tax that says one thing, but the actuals will show something different. So we're qualifying it right.
So what I think that the other thing beyond that that's important is if we're up about 1.69% in sales tax, that doesn't. What that really means is that pretty much people are spending about the same because we know CPI is up about 1.7%. And so realistically, it's not that anyone's buying more, it's that we're buying the same amount, it's just more expensive. And so spending is very, very flat.
Yeah, we actually have seen a decline from prior years, but we're still positive. That's the main thing. We're not going negative on our sales tax.
And this equates to last year we hit, and we'll probably maintain that this year, $9 billion in taxable sales for El Paso.
It's interesting that the city's actually losing sales tax revenue. oddly enough. I don't know why that is. So I don't know if it's in the outlying areas.
We have had 2 months that were down from prior year, but for the year, we're up 1.6. And when you look at the growth and the retail growth out in the horizon area and the outlying areas of the county, that may be something that's keeping us, pretty consistent.
Commissioner, they're losing from one year to the next?
That's, I had actually inquired the county attorney's office regarding our sales tax because as I was watching the city's budget meetings, they had some questions about the county sales tax. And that's when they had talked about that the sales tax were down one year to the next. So it's I don't know. There is.
I wonder if they net theirs and gross it, or if they abate their sales tax out of there. As their 380s are coming up, if they're taking it as a reduction to revenue, might be driving.
Well, yeah, that's true. Also, the other thing is that in counties, the sales tax is a true reduction. Property taxes for every dollar we get, and I'm assuming the city's treating it the same way. It should be the same way. But the excesses, they don't have to. But I mean, there's statutes specifically to counties, and the county's max is a half cent. And it's been that way, so any kind of a change on that has domino effects possibly throughout the state. So we need to look at that real closely.
And then I know as it goes to debt, I mean, is there, and I think that there's no way for us to accelerate debt or for us to, because I know it just kind of goes in the back of the line in terms of our payments or right?
No, actually, we use it to offset the amount. The excess of sales tax we're talking about, the excess is used to reduce the amount of taxes we need the following year for debt. So it always zeroes out. Every year we have an excess, it's paid to debt. Every year it just goes to debt. The excess in the general fund goes to reduce taxation and debt service for debt service payments. But you're not buying down, I understand what you're saying, we're not buying down the debt to like early extinguish it.
Right.
Because it's not really that much every year. It's, $500,000. It's.
But like Mr. Dion says, the excess sales tax that gets transferred into the debt service fund is taken into consider for our calculation. So when that tax is calculated this year, Mr. Dion will provide to the tax assessor collector, if we transferred $500,000 in excess, that is fund balance in the debt service fund, and the tax assessor collector will take that into consideration, and we will levy that much less taxes on the community because we're taking that sales tax into account.
And
that's a direct reduction to sales tax.
We're treating that
property
as
tax.
like an abatement also. We are budgeting an excess sales tax disbursement to the debt service fund and not reducing the sales tax revenues. Just so that we have a constant revenue that's never netted out. But I see what you're saying, but we don't, the amount of excess is not significant enough to buy down the debt that's outstanding, and we would really have to talk to our financial advisor whether that's even possible, because a lot of times you can't really do it until you reach a point on the amortization schedule where the bond order allows you to do something with the debt, to pay it off, to restructure it or whatever, but I don't think you can. Most of our debt, I mean, if you wanted just to go and pay it all off up front, just pay it down, you probably could do that. But we would have to talk to the FA. But it's not significant, the amount we're talking about right now.
And you're right, it's not, but like over time, over like 5 years, 6 years, it doesn't.
We're not allowed to accumulate it.
Okay.
We have to, and it's only the counties. Cities are not required to do this. Counties by law are required to take the excess and apply it towards debt.
Apply it to debt until you are.
So if we needed $1 million and we had $500,000, we only tax $500,000 because we automatically say we have reserve fund balance, which offsets the amount of taxes you need. Taxes are always reduced by the amount available fund balance in a debt service fund from all sources, whether it's interest.
So the homeowners benefit from that on an annual basis for that increased tax collection. The consumers are getting that benefit directly because we're levying less of a tax rate.
And just to go back to the sales tax issue, when we started this back in 1989, sales tax came in $24 million. Our property taxes went down $24 million. So we ended up the same revenues, but the taxes to ad valorem taxes went down. So the property owners saw a direct benefit of $24 million, and the $24 million in revenue and sales tax was spread across the whole community. So it's a totally different perspective as to how you tax with sales tax versus property tax. So if we had a detrimental effect of of being able to levy a half-cent sales tax, it would affect all property tax owners, which is, it's not as evenly distributed as sales tax.
And so, so I guess that's it. So the way that the county first got the sales tax was through a countywide.
There was legislation
vote,
passed.
right.
The counties jumped on it because they allowed an extra half-cent, which brought it up to
Which
two
we
and a
held
half.
an election in 1988.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, I'm pretty sure it was voter approved.
Yes,
If I
it
go back
was.
to the records, and the voters approved it. And I think if it changed, I think you would have to go back for voter approval to take it from one entity and give it to another.
But the benefit of, and the requirements in the statute was upon the imposition of the sales tax, it was a direct offset and reduction to our property tax rate. And that is taken into consideration every year. As our sales taxes rise, our property taxes compress in direct proportion to sales taxes. That's part of the calculations.
I've got a question before we go further, I'll forget. On your previous slide, you had the mixed beverage. I saw a big difference there.
State mixed beverage tax
Yeah.
increase.
If you look at 17 as compared to 16,
So it's up $60,000.
or more or less, yeah.
Consumption is an increase in local consumption of mixed beverages.
That
Or
much?
an increase
Is
in
that-
price.
That could drive it as well, the base price.
And some.
Is that a routine kind of thing? Does it go up that much?
It actually does. It's been growing at the click of between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, almost every year. The only year it was backwards is the year that we were in that recessionary period, 8, 9, and 10, and the state legislatively took 25% of local mixed beverage taxes, and we did not get that for 2 years. That was a $500,000 impact to this community when the state cut that out of our budget and kept it for the state budget.
Wow.
Other than that, it grows.
Is that a reflection of the economy, maybe? Is that-
Well, as Betsy mentioned, it's two things. It could be the cost of the liquor itself, and the consumption patterns.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I also, a couple of things too is, I know in the last few years, there's been specific very large liquor stores open. You saw Western Beverage do a bunch of remodels where they made their stores larger. You saw Specs come into town. And so where someone may have driven over to New Mexico, to Walgreens, you can buy it at Walgreens in New Mexico. You could drive down to someone, not that I've ever done this, I have not. Full disclaimer.
Betsy has a PowerPoint on
Yeah, but there's more availability in town than there used to be, I believe. Sorry, Michael.
Oh, no problem. Next up is expenditures. Like in revenues, this chart presents a breakdown by fund type of all expenditures within the county, both month to date and year to date. Once again, general fund highlighted there. And this next chart shows the year-to-date expenditures compared to fiscal year 2016. The chart shows an increase in fiscal year 2017 year-to-date expenditures compared to 2016. It's about $840,000. This is primarily due to an increase in personnel expenditures. These next two pie charts show the percentage of expenditures compared to the remaining general fund budget. Please note that 2017 is net of the $30 million contingency that was budgeted. Still, we're a little bit less compared to our total general fund. And this last chart shows the same chart as in the previous slide for 2017. However, it also shows the breakdown between the functions of government. As always, public safety is about half of the expenditures in the county. Administration of justice is another quarter. General government is about 20%, and all the other functions of government are the remaining 5%. Finally, fund balance. I don't know if Mr. Dion has comments on his fund balance graph.
We're still working on using the new brain. In fact, my my forecast for the revenues and fund balance that I've already provided to Mr. Hardgrove is fairly consistent with my aggregate estimation of $82 million by the end of the fiscal year. That may be conservative, but I'm seeing the trend is going down a little bit. Last year, the biggest impact was the federal prisoner revenue we received. We've seen population actually, it's been down. It's been around 600 right now rather than 700. So that we're going to see a little bit of a decline in the overall revenues. That's the most significant one. Sales tax is down a little bit. So I think we're in good shape to be, I think that's a conservative number to be between around $79 to $82 million for the end of the fiscal year. I'm going to modify it every month. Like I said, we used a new brain to project the expenses for all future months for payroll, and I'm working with budget and policy because there are some major line items in the budget that I need their input as to whether those lines are going to be expended or not, because that directly affects the fund balance projection. But I think we're solid on the 82 million for the end of the fiscal year, and at this point I think it may rise a little bit, but I'm going to be cautious and to tell you that we're going to hit 85 or anything like that at this point. See where we are on some of those major expenses, because we have some things in the pipeline that may be one-time expenditures which will draw down the fund balance.
So I told Mr. Dion I'd commit to, I got the revenue estimates Tuesday night, and I'll commit to going through revenues and fund balance estimates through the weekend and give them some feedback for Monday.
And that's my first projection using the new system. We have some things we're looking at, so I may provide some additional adjustments to what I've proposed, but I think we're in good shape. Mainly, I provided the general fund and the special revenue funds, which are the most significant portion of what we budget. But we'll be providing all the additional ones as more information comes available on the enterprise fund, debt service. We'll be getting the tax numbers from CAD, so we'll start doing the calculation of what the effective tax rate would bring in. And typically, when I do my projections, I will put what the effective tax rate will bring in, or I'll leave the current taxes. It depends, whatever the lower is. If the effective rate's bringing your revenues down, then I'm going to put the effective rate in my projection for next year until you all make the decision of whether you're going to go effective lower. Because I can't make that call. I can't certify. I can only basically do the effective rate unless you all decide otherwise. But we're in solid shape right now.
Okay. Any questions?
What are the line items in question, I guess, for expenditures?
One of them, do you have a $4 million one-time expenditure in there? And the other ones are the contingencies, reserved for salaries, a reserve for personnel. There are some line items in there for litigation and some other stuff like that, which I'm going to be safe and say, we need to make sure we're covering ourselves, and I don't think we're going to have excess there, but there's some major contingency line items.
For example, we've got our mental health gap analysis as a component of the M&O for contingencies. So what I'll be replying to him is we're comfortable with that right now. We're reappropriating that for FY8, or recommending to reappropriate that for FY18. So I'll go through those in detail. The guy just provided me with a really good reconciliation of our fund balances, where we're at, and I've got a good feel for. And maybe Betsy talk about those on a monthly basis. So
we have a line item in there which may not come to fruition, which is refunds taxes. And CAD gave us a notice, but it's there. I'm right now leaving it as if we're gonna use it, but I'll take the guidance from budget policy. And as we go through this process towards the end, at some point, budget and policy will do their own separate projection. They can take what I have, copy it, they can massage it, they can, use their own scenarios. But at the end, we're gonna come together, and there's gonna be a compromise proposal. And the next biggest step is going to that next 5-year projection. Because right now, our focus is on projecting through the end of the fiscal year, projecting for 18. And then we need to, because sometime back, when I was providing this, it's like, well, how are you projecting your 5 years out? And that's still the big question we need to address. We're gonna sit down and make some decisions, and it'll come back to you as to what you want to do as far as what you want us projecting for the next 5 years. At this point, I just go and I take historical patterns and I let them float for the next 5 years. But you may want to say that, we're going to be flat, and we'll be able to do it by line item. We'll be able to do it by budget. We'll be able to do it by fund. But the main focus is going to be the general fund. And one of the concerns is special revenue. We have some funds that are challenged with some of their revenue sources, which we don't have a lot of options. This will give us an ability to maybe to do some planning and to focus on some areas that we really need to.
And just as a note, those budgeted line items that Mr. Dion's talking about that haven't been expended are affecting this comparison between 2017 and 2016. So even though it shows a 39% unexpended general fund, it's because of those additional budgeted line items that are increasing the budget but have not been expended yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you might see a change there in the future.
Okay, and then I'll say, with the new brain, Michael is getting real savvy with the new brain system. When I have something to be changed, he gets in there, he tweaks it, he works on the parameters of the system. So he's so any help that, for budget, if you don't understand something or you need help, Michael's getting really good at it.
Yeah, budget.
We get the new brain guru here.
I could use a new brain, okay? But one of the things we're not going to do is we're not just going to do a plug and play like we've done in the past. We know how we've done it in the past. We bought this software for a purpose also, is let's let the software do its calculations based off of the technology. It takes historical training in there. We get to go in and if we know in a particular year this account is high because we got an incentive payment of $250,000 on a contract, we have the ability to go in and say, take that out of future calculations. That was a one-time shot. Now let the computer program do that calculation. So it's a really neat software.
And also say in the setup, we met with the implementers and they set up scenarios and calculation methods and stuff. And I'll just say that a calculation method doesn't work across the board. So right now we do it manually. We do a lot of Excel, and this system's going to be an automated Excel. So budget will be able to get in to see the projection and what's being put in for the future months, future years. And a lot of it's going to be manual intervention in the system, where we go in and play with it by line. And it's really going to be necessary because you can't just say, well, apply this formula across the board, because every line, every department, an account is not used the same in one department as it is in another, because every department has its own needs and experiences. So we're using the historical trends by line, and we'll probably be going through and modifying a lot of it that way. And if we can find a way where we can flag things, where we can have them automatically calculated to gain the efficiencies, we're going to use this system to the best of our ability. But we're in a process now where we've kind of done it, and we've had to still do a manual process, but now it's taking that manual process and sitting down side by side with the system and bringing it into the new system and trying to move forward so that hopefully the next projection we do is strictly out of the new brain forecasting system.
As rebates expire, as other courts before us have approved and as they start hitting our tax rate, is there a way of tracking that? Are we notified that this rebate award has expired from 10, 15 years ago?
My understanding is that we will put those into our projection. It starts this year and it ends this year. We will populate it in the system. We'll be able to get you a report that shows the rebates that we're going to be paying over the next 5 years, 10 years. And it'll tell you when it expires based on the agreement we have. So we should be able to give you a report of the amount of rebates. And I think contract management is also doing.
Econ Development is keeping a cumulative 381 worksheet for both property rebate, hot rebate, and sales tax rebate.
Prior,
yes, sir.
Because
yes, sir.
The Government Accounting Standards Board has put another requirement on us in this fiscal year. We are now going to have to report all the abatements, not just ours. Mm-hmm. We have to contact all the other governmental entities, and we have to report a comprehensive rebate analysis to show the taxpayers what taxes are being abated, whether it's sales tax, property taxes. And my office has been collaborating with economic development and contract management, and they're collaborating with the city and the other entities, so that it's going to be a challenge. But at the end of this fiscal year, we're going to have to put it in our annual financial report. But it'll be informative to all of you. So we'll touch base back again and make sure we're on top of that. It's going to have to be done.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Michael.
Michael.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Could we please have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Pettis?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Hegarty?
Aye.
Judge Escobar?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Judge Commissioners, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Item 5, receive a presentation regarding the proposal of a telecommuting policy and plan for eligible county employees in fiscal year 2018.
We're working towards, you all meet with UMC at 1 o'clock. So we're working towards, we have 4 more items. The last item is 3 more department presentations. So I expect that last item will take about an hour. And so we have 3 items. We're working towards trying to stay on schedule to get you all out of here at noon. So you have a break before UMC.
Thank you.
So,
Is
Melissa,
IT
Don't
here?
ask a lot of
this
questions.
is Melissa,
Oh, it's Vanessa.
and she is here.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So this item, I'd like to discuss with you the potential of implementing a telecommute plan for eligible county employees. And before we put too much work into creating policies and meeting with department heads and seeking their input, we thought, let's take it to the court and see if you all are even interested. So that's what this item is today. Flexible work arrangements. More employers are engaging in flexible work arrangements throughout the U.S. workforce today, and the county honestly engages in the majority of these with the exception of telecommuting. But some examples of what flexible work arrangements look like include shift work, part-time schedules, compressed work weeks, job sharing, part-time schedules, and flex time. And the one that we don't currently engage in that I'd like to bring to you is telecommuting. And so 52% of current employers do engage in some sort of flexible work arrangement for their employees. What is telecommute specifically? What does it look like? It's basically allowing employees the ability to work remotely, either from home or another work location, via electronic resources, technology, internet services, things of that nature. And it's becoming widely popular because employers are looking for ways to shift operational costs, respond to natural disasters, and really assist employees with work-life balance. Telecommuting can be seen in 3 different ways. It's part of their regular schedule. It's done on brief occasional situations that may be found recurring, or also in emergent situations or temporary basis via natural disasters or things of that nature. And currently, 35% of U.S. employers offer telecommuting to a professional level exempt workforce. So some benefits to this, there's some benefits and there's some disadvantages. You can see here greater productivity, reduced absenteeism. One of the ones I'd like to talk about with benefits is the lower employee costs. Because when they're not working or commuting 5 days a week, they're spending less in lunches, they're spending less in gasoline, vehicle maintenance, dry cleaning, things of that nature. And one of the biggest ones, which is the last one, is the reason why I started thinking about this, and it's space. We constantly talk about the need for space and how we don't have space as we continue to grow. And so one of the biggest benefits with telecommuting is space. It's literally when employees are at home, the other employees are in their office, and they flip-flop when they're using the same office. And so it really gives the employer an opportunity to think about space needs using telecommuting for some of its eligible employees. So that's kind of what started the idea of bringing this to you. Some disadvantages, there are some employees who really just don't like it. They like getting out and coming to work and the social aspect of it. Electronic resources, ensuring that we have employees set up at home to be able to use, or laptops that they can take with them. Role conflict, some employees are at home and forget what they're supposed to be doing. They think, oh, should I do the dishes? Wait, no, I'm at work. And so that's kind of a disadvantage. But never is telecommuting something that employees should do in an effort to balance caregiving of children and parents. That's not what it's for. It's so that they focus in a different environment and they free up space for others. So these are some benefits and disadvantages. This is sample criteria. It does not mean this is what it would stand as, but if we were to consider implementing the plan, it might look like this, where employees who have demonstrated successful performance throughout the past 12 months might be eligible. Employees who have a positive or exceeds performance rating on their most recent performance eval, they're able to demonstrate that they can work independently. They perform job duties that are not location specific. If you have employees who serve a customer or 50% of the time or more, they're probably not someone you're gonna consider for a telecommute because they need to be here. So that would be taken into consideration. They need to have a location that's dedicated from distraction. Seniority may play a factor in this, and I did also include that it may be eligible only for FLISA exempt personnel at this time due to the nature of managing non-exempt employees and when they're here and when they're not. So this is a list of sample criteria if we were to consider this plan. And today I bring it to you for direction, for feedback. Is this something you want us to consider looking at? If so, what I would do is draft what that policy would look like, and then I would work with department heads to see if it accommodates their type of workforce. Get their input, create a policy, and bring that to you all. If approved, the biggest thing to this would be the training. I would absolutely ensure that anyone who engages in it has to go through training to make sure they understand what should be done, what shouldn't be done, pros and cons, before we actually launch. But also, if implemented, we work with the departments on monitoring their metrics to see if this helped gain efficiency in any way.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, any questions?
I just have the roles question. When I'm at home, I'm usually not the most work-driven individual with kids and TV and honeydews. And it's just the real, and it's just the world that we live in. I mean, I'm sure there are people who can do it, but I know if I work from home today, all right, cool. Ooh, Game of Thrones. It's just this sad truth. And so I know I judge people by my actions, but if I'm at home, I'll answer an email, I'll take a phone call, but I'm probably not as productive. That's just me.
And this plan would be, if approved or if implemented, department heads would have that flexibility of determining how, who, what, and setting those parameters. It doesn't mean that everyone, it's a free-for-all, we can all do this. There would absolutely be criteria that needs to be met before it's considered.
No HBO.
We would check your phone bills, yes.
Commissioners, other thoughts?
I think times are changing. Of course, I heard this in 1973, but I think it's worth exploring.
Okay. Commissioner Bettis and Stell?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Commissioner Bettis?
I think we need to make some adjustments to things like our county holiday schedule and things like that first before we move on to telecommunication. I mean, I would much rather us tackle that first before we do other things. Because I think we already have a very generous holiday and schedule.
But it's not necessarily they're going on holiday. It's
No, I know. I'm just saying
not giving them time off.
No, I realize that. It's just a policy that I think that we just haven't really. We every year the number of days available to that, and I just think with this policy it's. We have to recognize. We're a public organization, and I guess that's one question I had is that when looking at the number of employers that offer telecommunications, I mean, how many of that are governmental entities versus the private sector?
And it's a combined staff, and you can look to separate public. One of the things, so space got me looking at this, but another big thing is we're also watching the type of workforce that's entering and the work-life balance, the needs of our millennial generation.
Oh. Is that allowed? Sorry.
It's keeping up with different needs that employees are looking for in their employer.
How about we just give them a trophy instead?
If I could, on the leave, as part of here in a couple weeks when we're starting in the budget, that is one thing that HR has already worked on is this leave study again, updating it, bringing it forward early in the process. So we looked at what all you all have asked about in previous budgets, and we are hopefully ahead of the game. We're trying to have looked back at what you requested in the past, that we usually get to late in the budget cycle. It comes up during budget cycle, and so then it's either late and we don't have enough data. But HR and budget have tried to look forward and have that data ready to go. We already have that as part of our presentations to you all.
I say go for it. I do think the policies have to be really, really strict because so much of our workforce is delivering direct services, right? And so and I think that needs a little bit more examination because the only thing that I'm worried about is kind of a perception within departments like, well, this is unfair. You know, I'm a frontline person. I can't telecommute. How come the back office person can? And so I would love for you to explore it. And I agree with Commissioner Leon. The times are changing. I think we need to continue to be competitive and attract good talent. And I like that it helps us deal with space. But before I'm ready to completely buy in, I would like for you to kind of take a look at that. The almost fundamental unfairness in jobs and how to be most strict so that really truly only those employees where it makes sense are allowed to by their department head. Where there's groups that are disallowed. But then that's the question of
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Thank-
All right. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Item 6, receive a presentation regarding the reclassification plan project involving attorneys.
So again, good morning, Judge, Commissioners. This item, as you know, we've been discussing and working on for quite some time. I wanted to take advantage of your Thursday regular meeting to be able to present where we're at, what are some of the outcomes, and what are some of the options that come before you today. We are not scheduled for action. We will bring this item before a Monday meeting, probably on July 31st, if we're at that point. But so today I'd like to just go over what's happened, where we're at, and I understand all three offices are here in the event they need to speak on this. So to give you a brief history, this all started when we contracted for the wage and compensation analysis with PSPC, or Public Sector Personnel Consultants, a year ago today. Part of that study, although it was a general study for the entire county, part of that study was focusing on the attorneys to determine what are we doing with their pay? Are we paying competitive wages? Are we in line with the market when it comes to our attorney salaries? And so that's what started this. Last year in budget, you all set aside $200,000 so that it could be used in the event this study identified any discrepancies. That's kind of where we're at. Going forward, what the outcome was, what did PSPC find? They did find that the wages we currently pay our attorneys are comparable with the market. And so there were 3 exceptions that they did find where we probably need to make some immediate changes. And those belong to the trial attorneys. Currently, your pay model allows for trial attorneys to step up until 3, and then it stops. And the reason why is because we have an attorney pay protocol that allows them to transition into a senior trial attorney position. But in looking at what we had versus other models, the study showed your trial attorneys probably should continue stepping to the max if you needed to use those for any reason. The second issue was first assistants. At entry level, they are starting out too low in comparison to the market, but by midpoint and by max, it fixes itself. And that's because, as you know, your pay model currently doesn't have consistent percentages between each of the steps. They differ between steps at certain phases. And then the third thing that the study found was regarding your chief legal officer, that those pays throughout were a little low at entry, mid, and max point. And so this is the outcome. This is what this study showed. So we could sit here and say, okay, great, then we have no changes to make to our pay model, which may work. However, in meeting with each of your departments, one of the things that kept jumping out was the ability to have career progression. And the 3 offices together agreed that career progression would significantly help with their recruitment and their retention of some of the attorneys who tend to leave between years 2 and year 6. And what they're seeing is because there's such stagnation, there's nowhere to go, there's no other positions for them to climb into, they'll leave for other challenges, they'll leave for other opportunities. And that period of time is what's most critical for your law offices, because that's when they've started learning, that's when they need them to stay, but yet that's often when they're leaving. And so one of the things we discussed was implementing 2 different types of lawyer positions. And you have what's called a principal attorney, and then you have a senior division chief. Your principal lawyer are those that focus on complex research, they have a specified skill, And they tend to put their work in that area, helping to produce outcomes on the larger end. So these attorneys aren't trying cases, they may not be defending cases, and they're not supervising anyone. They're focused in a more complex specialty aspect so that they can really produce for the department. You have your senior division chiefs, and comparable to what a division chief looks like, what's the difference between the two? Senior division chiefs oversee multiple units that have diverse and complex work. Whereas you may have a division chief who's in charge of just misdemeanors or just felonies or just, your senior division chiefs would be the type that oversee investigations and trying cases and different kind of fraudulent activity, or they have a multiple array of diverse work that senior division chiefs would be responsible for overseeing, and those units are probably larger than some of the others. So these are two of the positions that the departments agreed they would love to see included in the new pay model going forward. So with that said, we have a few options for you all to consider at this time.
Melissa, before you go into the options, I will, just on these career progression requests, as we've been going through with each department on the reclassification, this is part of what we're doing with them as well. We're saying, looking at their structure, telling us what their needs are, and evaluating that into what we bring in on the reclassification plan. So if you've heard Lisa mention this, you've heard Deborah mention this, like it's really helped us. We've made some changes in working with HR and our structure, and now we have a setup that works for us. So I just wanted to mention that this isn't something unusual. We've been doing this with other departments as well.
So there's three options I'd like to present today, and the first option is literally focusing on what PSPC outcomes are. There's three areas that need to be fixed, and this option would include fixing those three by adding more steps to your trial attorneys. At this point, you have no employees who are in those steps, so there's no impact. And then adjusting your grade A5. And the reason why is because your A5 coincidentally includes both your first assistants and your chief legal officer that needs to be adjusted based on this study. So option number one would be at a minimum taking care of that. Impacts right now are estimated at about $25,000 to do that. They're very minimal. Of course, this doesn't take into the consideration the career progression and the reorganization that the offices are hoping will take place. Option 2 and 3 do. So option 2 and 3 include a newly proposed pay model. And we don't have that for you today. We don't want to get into the details. We want to keep it broad. But it would include a new proposed attorney pay schedule where only those areas that need to be fixed will be fixed. It would take care of the trial attorney expansion of steps. It would also take care of A5, fixing the first assistant entry and the CLO throughout. But it would allow the principals and the senior division chiefs to be implemented into this pay model. This option includes a phase-in approach, where because we only have $200,000 that was set aside last year, the estimated impacts of doing this for all three offices is $413,000 total. This option would mean setting aside $200,000 coming up, and then setting aside another $200,000 next fiscal year to ensure it's all taken care of. It's a phase-in approach. There are some downsides to that. We have no idea of controlling what we're going to look like next year. If we take care of one this year, and then we need to take care of one next year, but we don't have the finances or something politically changes, and then that doesn't get taken care of. So there are some disadvantages with breaking it up. When you look at option 3, it's the same concept. The only difference is funding the difference that we're short entirely today. And so again, they're estimated at 213 is what we're short to make it happen for all three offices, which really is amazing considering the number of attorneys amongst the three offices. And the reason why they're still in estimated numbers is because we're working with our budget department to really calculate exactly what those numbers look like. And we would be ready with those numbers when we take this to action, but we're looking at a $213,000 expense at this point. And so this is where we're at. I don't know if you all want to speak to the attorneys or if you all have any questions.
Thanks, Melissa. Commissioners, any questions for Melissa before we hear from the attorneys?
Melissa, on one of your first slides, you had a comparison of some attorney says they're going up the line, that initially they're low, but as they get into the midpoint and it sort of balances out. If we increase those steps or include more steps? Is there compression issues towards the end?
That's a great question. One of the things I failed to mention on this particular slide was another outcome of the study was that currently our bandwidth or our range width from entry to max tends to be too high. So even on today's model, at some point, we start paying too much for our lawyers in those positions because we're going beyond the market. What the study recommends in the new proposed pay model is to shorten that bandwidth. And instead of having what you currently see as 15 steps, you would have a pay model that only has 12 steps. And that would help to fix paying too much at the front end and staying within the market within 12 steps versus the 15. So I forgot to mention that, but thank you for reminding me. Yes, I would fix that.
Okay. Any other questions for Melissa?
Would this give the ability to have more attorneys that are more skilled, where we don't have to bring in as much outside legal counsel?
That's exactly the intent, and they'll probably be able to speak more to that, but that is exactly the intent when we met with them, by saying if we can have them focused on certain areas, then the potential to hire outside expertise is less likely to occur. So yes, that should happen.
Okay. Any other questions before we hear from DA, county attorney, public defender? Would any of you like to address the court?
Everybody's rushing to the stage. You don't have to, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Don't feel obligated.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, thank you. HR has worked real hard on this project and they've been real meticulous in keeping us abreast of the details, and then they've done a great big job of interviewing people in every one of the offices, and I appreciate the work they've done, and I think the proposals make sense. For our part, I think that co-counsel will agree with me back here that we'd like to get it all done at once so that we know that it's done. And that's all I have to say on it, unless you have questions.
Okay, thank you. Eddie, Karen, I'm assuming you guys support option 3.
We do. The district attorney does, more importantly, and again, he is still in Austin. He comes back this evening. We also worked with HR, with the other attorney departments. This was a big project. It included looking at job descriptions, new job descriptions, and at our office, we tried very hard to adhere to what that job description was requiring. I think the new level for our office allows, or the district attorney believes that it will allow us to retain lawyers, those lawyers that are doing complex legal work that we can identify over and above. And I have to say also, our lawyers may be in the courtroom. So our principal attorneys may not always not be in the courtroom, as was mentioned earlier. But it allows us to have somebody at that level and retain them that may not be supervisor material or simply has no opportunity to do that. So we are very interested in retaining the skill level of these lawyers. For us, you probably heard the DA talk about it. We've talked about it with HR. We've talked about it with you about retention. Just so you know, since the end of last July, we have had 15 lawyer turnover at our office. That's significant for us. When we lose lawyers, we're losing experience in what we do. And so, we're very excited about the new pay levels. And the senior division chief I may be leaving out, but that's important to us as well. But that principal attorney position is something new and valuable, I think, to the county. And so we're hoping also that it can be implemented all at the same time. And I appreciate the effort that HR has made with us. They've met with us because there's another side to this. We're talking about the attorney side, but we have the staff side as well. So it's been a huge year for us. So that's all I'll say unless you have questions for me. All right, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. On behalf of the county attorney, I would just echo those comments. We would like to go forward with this proposal, and we'd like to go forward with the full proposal as soon as we're able. On the question of retaining attorneys and reducing the use of outside counsel, it's not going to happen overnight, but that is a strategy. Currently, if we're going to hire a non-supervisory attorney, the level would be at the senior trial attorney level, and our hiring guidelines are pretty restrictive. I mean, we're literally limited to maybe the second or third step, which is 78 or 80,000. We cannot attract an experienced litigator for that money. Under the new guidelines with a higher compensation level for principal attorney and more flexible guidelines for where you establish the initial compensation, our understanding is we should be able to recruit at the level over 100,000 if we've got somebody with those kinds of qualifications, and then still have some room for career growth following that. And the strategy is that will allow us to retain folks that have experience in federal court, that have experience doing trial litigation. I mean, that's the market for those individuals. So we're in favor of the program. The one area that I quibble with HR on is I suspect that it's probably a lower cost than we're projecting. We're still finalizing those numbers. So, you know, we're working on that. So we're trying to keep that under control as well. But as I'm sure, you know, Ms. Bernal has told you several times, she is very anxious to get this thing completed and implemented, and again, 100%, so that we can move on to other things.
Thanks, Eddie, and thank you all for coming down. I appreciate it. This really was a big project and something we committed to, the court committed to last year, and you're absolutely 100% accurate. The county attorney, district attorney, public defender, it's been a real challenge for you all to retain good, talented people. You've been telling us for years, and so I'm very excited to finally have something that everyone agrees on, that went through a rigorous review and study and analysis, and that there is a plan to present, and so I appreciate that. Melissa, I support option 3. It makes sense to me. Commissioners, what are your thoughts?
3 is good.
All right, it needs to be done. I just, I agree. I mean, I was in the DA's conference room not so long ago, and you look through that list of collages, and it's a who's who of attorneys in El Paso that started in the county in the last 4 years. So it's something that needs to be done, and I would like to see us get to a point where we're doing a lot more in-house counsel, not paying outside counsel their hourly rates to talk to us. So that's just a goal that I would like to see. So if that's part of what this will do, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Commissioners Stout, Perez?
Just one thing, I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of data that needs to be provided to the court regarding, you know, the legal profession is one where, you know, I think even with, you know, with the high levels of pay, you're still going to have a level of turnover. Well, what that level is, I don't know. But I think us knowing at least what the current turnover is right now is important before we make, you know, such a large commitment. You know, and comparing that, you know, with you know, with other entities. I mean, you know, benchmarking is always, I think, I'm always big on that, and you know, so I think it's just important, like, given that, and then also factoring in the future costs. You know, the attorney pay scale is, I know the steps are more, we have the attorney pay grade, but so whenever the county gives steps, you know, attorneys get more. I mean, so we need to factor in how much would that cost every time it is that we would provide a step under this new system, because it's not just this one-time cost, just making the system. It's a long-term cost, and so I think there's a lot of data here that needs to be looked at before we make a final determination.
I agree. I think you know, it's a question that I asked Betsy yesterday about what the actual turnover rate is, and in comparison with you know, with other counties as well. I do think that we should if there are some of our attorneys that are paid less than their less than the market rate, then we should bring them up to that. And if we really think that this is going to help with the retention rate, I think I could support it. And I think Commissioner Haggerty makes a good point. I too would love to see that we spend less on outside counsel in some of these cases, because it gets expensive, and that may offset the cost on a yearly basis. But can we also see how much we actually spend this year and last year? I guess in the last couple of years on outside counsel, just to see that number as well, and to help put it into perspective.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Also, we did invest a lot on the feasibility, on the market study, on the pay study, and to what degree does this deviate, I guess, from the recommendations made? I guess was option one the recommendations by the study, or is?
No. So when he does his recommendations, he's basically saying what's broken and what needs to be fixed. When you take into context the career progression and the new position, we've worked with him closely to see, and we actually asked him to go back out to market and see what do principals look like, what do senior division chiefs look like. So everything being proposed has run through the contracted agency for what we're proposing to you today. So it's not deviating from what he originally was hired to do, but he basically took the angle and said, this is where you're broken, this is what you need to do to fix it, but if we want to go this route, then this is what the market's paying for those types of positions as well. So everything we did was in alignment using him. We used our consultant throughout this process.
Okay, anything else?
Can we also see, I guess, a projection of what it, so this is a $413,000 for this fiscal year, but if we have a full staff, what's at these rates, what is it going to cost
in the future?
In the future?
I have that down to look at. One of the things I do want to say is, even though it's a 413 number, we're showing that on the year model because that's what we always do. What does it cost you on the full year? But we are at the end of the fiscal year, and so if we were to implement, it would not be a 413 cost at this moment, but it would be the full 413 for next year. So we'll work with Wally on future forecasting and bring you that information back.
Thank you. And as Betsy, as you mentioned, just as a reminder, this is how when we reclass, this is part of reclass. We know that there's an ongoing expense. It's not a one-time, no reclass has ever been a one-time expense.
And there's over 300 attorneys. $40,000, that's a little over $1,000 a year raise for attorneys if you divide it equally, which I realize it's not. But it's not like huge $1,000 paycheck raises or something that we're putting in play.
It's a large population, and we're not talking about the non-attorneys today. That's something that goes through a different process, but even them, there's so many non-attorneys amongst the 3 offices that the money we set aside just to deal with those offices, we're going to look at a significant impact for our non-attorneys as well. And it's just in direct correlation with the sheer number of people amongst these 3 teams, so.
Okay, all right, so you're bringing it back with everything?
My goal is to bring it to you all for action on July 31st. Okay. That's when the district attorney will be present. I'm trying to ensure that all 3 will be present for that item. So July 31st is my target date, which means I need to get crunching on some data information to share with you all before you all make that decision.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Melissa. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here.
Item 7, receive a presentation on the proposed incentives policy and provide staff feedback.
Let's take a 10-minute recess, a little health break. Thank you, Judge.
So it's 7 and then the 3 other
Yes, sir.
ones? So we might actually get
lunch.
Okay, cool.
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Won't be spilling stuff on eating in the car or anything like that.
County of El Paso is required to competitively bid for a variety of goods and services to meet the operational needs of county departments as they serve the El Paso residents. Are you a business that would like to be notified of available bids and contracting opportunities? The County of El Paso Purchasing Department maintains a database that allows our staff to notify interested businesses of bid and contracting opportunities based on the vendor's area of expertise or preference. To find out more about becoming part of this vendor notification database or to update your company's current information, please contact our department at 915-546-2048.
This is an ITD friendly reminder to all county employees. If you are interested in learning more about Microsoft Word, Excel, Outlook, or if you would like to learn more about telephone functions, the Information Technology Department offers trainings to county employees. If you are interested in attending these trainings, please sign up on Training Manager. Happy training!
The 346 District Court Judge Angie Juarez Barril started the El Paso Veterans Treatment Court program in 2012 for veterans and active service members that have been arrested and charged with a felony or misdemeanor criminal offense. To be considered for the specialty court, the statutory criteria includes be a veteran or current member of the United States Armed Forces, including a member of the Reserves, National Guard, or State Guard, and suffer from a brain injury, mental illness, or mental disorder, including PTSD, or be a victim of military sexual trauma, all occurring or resulting from military service. Call Sylvia Serna, Veterans Program Director, at 915-546-2119, or email her at sserna@epcounty.com for any information.
Commissioner Andrew Haggerty would like to invite you to his weekly breakfast meeting that takes place every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. at Danny's Diner, located at 4690 Trans Mountain Road. Every week he has a different speaker who will be discussing topics of interest for the community. So if you live in the Northeast, West Side, or anywhere else in the county, come and join us for the breakfast meeting.
Seven's already been ready to the record.
Good morning.
Good morning, County Judge, Commissioners. Good morning, Jose Quiñones with Economic Development.
Mayra de la Canac with Economic Development.
We're very glad to be here to give you and present to you the final comprehensive economic incentives policy for the county. We are proposing to put this for a vote before you on Monday, July 24th, and we're here for your any questions that you may have regarding it. We really would like to appreciate everybody's comments. I mean, each of you, we presented this. This is the third time that we present to the court in special session, and we had a lot of support from our county attorney's office. I'd like to thank the staff for their help in getting us through this, and a lot of feedback from some of our economic development partners, the City of El Paso, Board of Tax Alliance, that have helped us and shape this as well. And really truly each of you, because I think the success of this really depended on buying and understanding the intricacies of how these policies work, and these guidelines are going to help shape and lead investment into your areas. Okay. I have a short presentation, if you don't mind. It won't take you long, and I'll get you through as quickly as possible. Okay. It's not working.
You broke it?
Oh, there you go. All right. Okay. This is a very nutshell. What is the purpose of our comprehensive incentives policy? Is to help us shape incentives to select groups that will make or make a measurable difference in terms of achieving economic growth and development, and helping to achieve is to expand the tax base in El Paso County, also by creating jobs. Those are the two key ingredients, I would say: investment and quality jobs. A summary of our strategic objectives. This is not all of them, but I think the primary ones: create significant new quality jobs, increase investment, retention and expansion of existing businesses. So we're not just looking at attraction, we're also looking at what's here in El Paso. Attraction of key industries, that's where the Borderplex Alliance came in and helped us shape all that, so that our key industries pretty much mimic what the community is looking for, not only from the private sector, but also for the government. And the city of El Paso's key industries are very much in line also with that. Support large private investment. Obviously, private investment is key to this because it's focused on incentivizing large investment. Revitalization of designated redevelopment areas, and we do that by putting so much effort into these new creatures that we call investment zones, and creating a robust regional economy. There's two parts to this new comprehensive intensive policy. Part A is the county-wide categories. We've identified 4: quality jobs, business type, capital-intensive project, and local homegrown business. So they not only talk about looking at large industry, but also the small guy on the block who we should also be looking for when they're looking at expanding in our local community. The second part of it is what's new. Our new creation is the investment zones, and really each of you had a lot to say on this. We really took all your comments and recommendations into suggestion, and we came up with 7 investment zones throughout the county of El Paso as they're listed there.
Real quick on that side, that's an area where we get questions like, what are we doing to develop in this area? What are we doing to increase development in certain areas? Mission Trail, Port of Entry. And this, because we don't actually necessarily own the property or have a development of our own, except for maybe in the airport area, where in these areas, what we're doing is we're providing incentives for those who do develop. And so, whereas at the Fabens Airport, the county may look at doing some of its own development to lease as part of a incentive to encourage major vendors to come in there. So.
That's right. We can still do 381s on these properties. So even though the county owns it, on the improvements, the investment they do to bring in machinery, equipment can be considered in a 380. We're also looking at 4 projects that are listed here that will be brought to you through the budget process, and those will be during that process will be considered for funding. So obviously not everything in here works off a rebate basis, but actually there is a requirement for funding on those, and we listed those for you to keep in mind. The other thing very important is that we added on a clause that requires employers that really want to maximize their incentive is that they ensure they provide evidence to us of gender wage gap. And that is providing equal opportunity regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. And more importantly, meeting our requirements. So that is an added bonus only if they meet that requirement. And I've given it to you in a very quick nutshell, but I wanted really to open it up to see if you all had any questions, since this is on the agenda for Monday.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I've got one. Do businesses that are contemplating coming to El Paso, number one, know that there's rebates available, especially on the smaller businesses that come in? I was at an event last night, and I don't think they put in for rebates. It's a 100-person 100 new employees. Is it just word of mouth out there in the business world? How do they know?
Well, we're going to request that you make this new incentives policy effective October 1st. So it'll fall in line also with the funding. But between now and October 1st, our plan is to go out there with the business community to educate them, inform them about the county's incentives policy. word of mouth is part of it, but I think more importantly is getting out to a lot of our industry and agency partners so that they understand, here's our new incentives policy. We'll meet with business groups and inform them about this new policy, because that's the way the community is going to be aware of this new policy going forward. The rebate through the 381 is a very important part of it. We have to go out and do that outreach. And that's something that's never been done from the county side.
But it's
So, like
surprising
the-
that all these, I'm sorry.
Like the Small Business Administration, then also EPCC has a small business program. Making sure that all of them are aware is an important part of getting the word to individuals who may be looking into starting a business. We do work with Borderplex and Chamber now, and the state, also economic development, but not every business comes through those sources.
Yeah, I was very surprised, especially last night. I was asked about it, and it was too late. I said, yeah, it's too late. But I guess the industry in itself, they should know those types of opportunities exist.
Yes, and if you know of any industry, particular like a professional association that would like for us to approach them, we'd be glad to. We want to put the boots out there, but we don't want to do it ahead of putting the cart before the horse per se, until you all have taken final action and said, this is it, we're going to do this.
Most of the time, we don't know about it until you know about it.
Most of the time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other Commissioner Pettis?
I was approached, I think you all also met, thank you for meeting with all the stakeholders that you all met with as well. I think one of them was the Horizon Economic Development Corporation. And the Horizon has made, it's a really interesting concept, and they've actually dedicated a portion of their sales tax to helping get the Economic Development Corporation off the ground. And they're very interested in partnering with the county. And I know that typically we've done 381s with the city of El Paso. I can't think of a major 381 that we've done with other cities. And now the Economic Development Corporation is separate, but I guess they were hoping to memorialize some sort of, partnership in the incentives policy. Maybe due to its, geographic isolation, that they typically haven't partnered with the county before. But I do see that as a potential opportunity, because as the Economic Development Corporation has very unique abilities to provide incentives to attract business. Horizon is a growing industry. They're targeting high tech and high-end industries to bring in high-paying jobs. Is there a way to incorporate, I guess, the Economic Development Corporation somehow? And I don't know if it would be sort of like a zone area or what, or another mechanism for that.
We have met with the Horizon Economic Development Corporation. As a matter of fact, I got off the phone with them yesterday with Michael. We had a good conversation about moving forward, and we expressed to him about our plan. He was aware about what we were proposing to do and everything. On the category, the Part A category of the incentives policy, there is opportunities to incentivize projects that may fall along with whatever Horizon City as a community wants to do. They're working on a strategic plan. They don't have it all finalized yet, but I think once they're ready, we'll be, as a county, ready to support them in whatever endeavors they want to do when they identify their key industries that they want to focus on. More importantly, I think that we can maybe formalize that, like maybe pursuing like an MOU, so that we both agree, both agencies, how we want to work together. And one of the things that I was planning on doing is meeting with all the economic development agencies through the county, with the various communities. You have town administrators, EDOs, that we can talk on a quarterly basis. And one of the things on the agenda would be this new county and comprehensive policy, and then how each of them wants to work with us. That's never been done before, but I think because they all have different areas and different industries they want to pursue and different objectives. Some are focused on tourism, some on historic preservation, some on new industry. We want to approach those more individually, so we can be more effective in what they want to do, and obviously if the outcome is the county will also benefit from that. But if you have any other suggestions, I'll be glad to take them into consideration.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all first of all for the work that you've done on it. I know that we all have different ideas, as you said, and it can be difficult to kind of consolidate everything. I just wanted to talk about two things. So I want to thank you again for including the equal employment opportunity issue in there that I brought up last time that addresses the gender wage gap. I think that's an important facet. But I had a question. I don't know if it talks about the applicant having to provide that they have a policy that addresses gender wage gap. But I think we need to, possibly go a little further than that and be able to, not just have a policy in place, but actually
Audit.
see that they're following that policy. And so I want to make sure that it has a little more, the language is tighter when it comes to that. I mean, it's great. Anybody can say they have a policy, but whether or not they're following that policy is a completely different thing. So
I agree with you totally. That's one thing I had noted that we need to put that in, that we will, as part of our compliance program, verify that they're adhering to the policy.
okay. Yeah, so there probably should be language in there saying that they must be willing to provide us with
Payroll records,
the records and the information that we need to be able to audit that.
And we can incorporate that as part of the 381 agreement in there.
And I think we'd like to see something in our policy that says they must provide the policy and comply with any audit requirements in order to receive the additional time.
Okay.
For the rebate.
Yeah. And then the second one was we had talked about having the healthy kind of foods and I know that the department spent some time with some local grocers and kind of came to the conclusion that they don't see a need for those types of incentives, and so that's probably why they weren't included in this proposal. But out of those meetings that we had with the Healthy Living Institute, with the Paso Norte Health Foundation, there are other policies besides just an incentive policy that we can set up, and one of them that I'd like to see, it has to do with the healthy food financing initiatives. We can talk to Janine a little bit more about that, but I was at a training that the American Heart Association came to and spoke to a number of the local grocers and also some of the local farmers and others about it's a way that cities and counties can provide grants or loans to farmers and to also grocers to whether it's advertising, helping them to do advertising, or that instead of putting sodas and chips and everything on the front pages of their circulars, or setting up their stores, helping them set up their stores so where all the fatty, nasty foods are in the back and in a dark corner, and all the nice, healthy foods are in the front, being displayed beautifully and pushing people towards those. I mean, so I think there are ways that we as a county can invest some of our or we can provide incentives that way. And so I'd like to ask the Economic Development Department, and I will continue to join you, but to look further into that type of program as part of our economic development policy, because I understand that they didn't see any need for the 381 incentives or what we were trying to do, but from the feedback that we got from them, I think in the meetings that I was involved in, there was definitely an appetite for something else, and there are different vehicles that can be used to be able to do that. So I'd like to continue to meet with Janine Gallinat at the HLI and to try to develop something that we can and talk to the city to see if we can partner with them, because I think if the city is on board with something like this, it would be even more impactful, and it would help in our community when it comes to healthy living and healthy eating. But you know, so that's my observation or suggestion.
Yes, sir. We can also ask the grants team to see if there's any kind of funding, like a pass-through type of funding that we could manage from different healthy eating, active lifestyle type grants that we would be able to use, kind of like basically for businesses to apply to meet exactly those kind of standards. We can see what's out there as well.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, and you know, I think at some point, it may not completely be an economic development policy, but I think it has to play, it has to bear. But also, I think we should include our nutrition, our general assistance program as well, kind of in these follow-ups that we do.
Great. Anything else?
I got like 9 jokes that are just trying to.
I could sense them on your face.
Let's hear one.
I think there's a Soylent Green Factory looking for some grant funding. Can we pull that off?
There's a what?
Soylent Green Factory. Trying to pull this.
All right. Anything else? Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the work.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Item 8, receive departmental highlight overview for fiscal year 2017-2018 budget.
Good morning, Chris.
Just a couple minutes. I need to train them on how to use their equipment. Not really.
Hi, Dave.
Morning.
Good morning.
And I just want to say thanks to his team. We've had a lot of interactions this week with presentations in, presentation modifies. His team behind the scene, Bolton, AV, and in the back room have been kicking butt. Thanks.
You know, and before you begin, Chris, I have to tell you that throughout the week, as we've heard departments come in and just give us their quick highlights before we, really delve into budget, almost to a department, they mention IT. And
they
that,
think you're terrible.
Yeah, I myself.
And that their success was completely hinged on everything that you did. So I just want to publicly recognize you and thank you and tell you that we've been hearing nothing but praise for you and gratitude for your department and your team and your staff as we've been hearing about other department successes.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and thanks to them, and it really is a collaboration, and I do have to say, we can't do anything without our end users. We don't have any applications that we create for ourselves. You'll see in my presentation, they're all for other departments, and none of that happens without collaboration, and that's really been the key. So with that, I'll get going really quickly.
Great.
I know you've been through a lot of these presentations, so I'll do my best to keep them at a decent level and a decent pace. So my plan is really just to go through the 5 divisions that make up IT. I'm going to talk a little bit about the performance metrics that we currently use to evaluate ourselves, and then highlight a couple of projects that I think rise to the level of being something that we're proud of, and they're probably going to mirror some of the things that you've heard because they have been collaborations. But to start, I'd like to go over our challenges. And let you know some of the obstacles and the trials that we've gone through and continue to go through, and some of the ways that we've approached tackling those. The first one is demand for services. So that's kind of a double-edged sword because having a large demand for services is a good thing because it means they like what we're providing and they want the services that we provide, but it also means that it can tend to lower our quality. And so one of the things that's very important to me personally is making sure that we deliver a quality product. IT isn't something that, it's not really a quantity game. Giving you more and more IT isn't helpful if it doesn't work or if it's not secure or if it has a lot of failures. Some of the examples I have is right now we have 22 projects that are in queue, just waiting for resources to be able to work on these projects that we've deemed doable and departments want them and we want to do them. We have a 30-month backlog in developing new software. So if you came to me today and said, I need a new piece of software written, it's got 30 months if it's just at a standard queue to be able to do that with all the work that we have. We tackle about 30,000 service requests every year, just
fixing and breaking and repairing and changing out. And even our modernization plan, that's an annual plan that we bring before you every year, the refresh, I think you've heard it called, that actually takes about 18 months for us to roll that out because it's such a huge forklift to get all that out. So one of the things that we're doing is we're working on our objective metrics. So we're looking at making sure that we know how fast we can do a thing and that we're able to come to you confidently with, if we put this much more resource at a problem, we'd be able to do it this much faster, or we'd be able to handle this much more of a load. We've been working on service level agreements. So we want to get with our departments and we want to make sure that they understand what we can commit to in terms of how long it would take to roll out a new computer. How long does it take to roll out a new application? We want to be very honest about how long that takes. I don't want to get everybody excited about a new program and then they can't have it for 3 years. So we have to be fairly honest, and our method to do that is through service level agreements. We're also looking at being scalable. We're looking at moving to the cloud. We're looking to do collaborations with other departments and other entities. So we've got some ways to tackle this challenge, but it is a challenge, and I'm trying really hard as the chief to balance the need for more staff versus the long-term goal of being sustainable. I don't want to overhire and then put us in a position of not being able to sustain that. The second one is kind of hand in hand, and it's employee retention. I think I've heard a little bit as I've had this on in my office that some other departments have talked about that. We too have experienced some retention issues. We're only at about 13% this year, and that's not really very bad. I've looked at some of the other organizations and it's not horrible. But every time we lose someone, especially the very key people we lose, they take our knowledge, they take the training that we've given them. There's a delay when we hire someone new. In IT, it takes us a new programmer 6 to 8 months before they can write their first program for us, because we got to get them trained. We got to show them where the databases are. We got to teach them how we do things. So for us, it's really key to try and hold on to people. Some of the things that we've done is we've tried to modernize our workplace. So we've taken some things like you've heard earlier today, flexible schedules, working with employees in terms of how and where they do their job. Just real physical things, lift stand-up desks and multiple monitors and just anything that we can do to try and enhance the fulfillment that they get out of their job is important to us, and we think it affects the bottom line. We work really hard with career development. We want to make sure that all of our employees have paths to where they want to go. Some don't. Some of my employees, they're fine doing what they do and they're happy. Others would like to look at ways to move on, and we try and be pragmatic and dynamic and give them an opportunity to move up through the organization into higher level. We've actually, this year, we've had some really good advancements from within, which I'm really proud of. Lastly, and I think this is probably the most important thing, is we're trying to give our employees more meaning to their job. I have to be honest, the first person who showed this probably more dramatically than anyone else is Roger Martinez at JPD. One of the first things he did when I was hired, he took me out to his place and walked me through and showed me the kids and showed me his program, and it hit me. That's when I write a program for Roger, when I help Roger with his phones, it helps those kids. And so we're trying to do that with our staff. We're trying to get them out into the differing departments and seeing what their impact is in getting computers installed, getting printers installed, that kind of effect. So for us, that's one of the ways that we're tackling it is to give a little more meaning to job as opposed to just a paycheck. And then lastly, training and education. This one's a really quick one. Of the employees that have left recently, I've noticed in the exit interviews that their biggest complaint with us, aside from me being a taskmaster, I'm not, is training. And their complaints. They wish they would have had more training. They wanted more access to training. And I'm befuddled a little bit because we have so many great programs. HR provides tons of opportunities. We've got tuition reimbursement. We've got all these things that they can do. And so David and I have been working really hard to try and expose those to our employees, encourage our employees, sometimes dragging and screaming the employees to some of this training. But we think that that'll go a long way to helping with the other problems that we have. So with the challenges out of the way, I'm going to go very quickly through my divisions. The first one I'm going to talk about is our infrastructure division. This division is led by Ms. Susie Esquivel, and she does a fantastic job. I want to bring your attention to the upper right-hand corner of the screen. There's a little info box in there, and to be honest, that box is too small. That should be the main thing that I show, but honestly, the highlights aren't, it's not as exciting. These are our core metrics. So the very top rating is called our performance rating. And this number seems very simple, right? It's basically on a grading scale. It's if you're 0 to 60, you're failed. If you're 60 to 70, you're marginal. If you're 70 to 80, you're efficient. If you're, it kind of goes up with this terminology. It's a very complex calculation that creates this. It is not trivial at all. As a matter of fact, I don't really understand the entire calculation. I've had some input into it, but they've taken it on and created a way that we can grade our employees on a very even scale and across every employee, from a software developer to a technician to an AV person. And we're able to compare ourselves and see how well we've done. And when we make changes to our organization, we're able to see, did we get better or did we get worse? I heard you talking earlier about remote work. One of the things that we are prepping for in hopes of a remote work is to be able to say that employees' KPIs is what we call it, but their performance rating does not go down. So if we send them off-site to work for a while and that number drops, we know very well, very quickly that it's not working and we need to bring them back in. If that number stays the same or goes up, we think, well, maybe we should do more of that. So I want you to pay attention to this number. This is an average number amongst all the employees in this division, but each employee has this number. We've changed all their job descriptions, and it's a part of their job. It is how they are evaluated, and it is objective. It doesn't matter if they like their boss likes them or not. If they've got their number up, their performance rating is going to be good. So Susie's job does a great work, and they're really the backbone of our organization. We have above a 99% uptime. That means out of 365 days of all the hours in that time, we've only allowed ourselves 1% of that time to be down. That's about 8 hours a month, and that includes things like maintenance, that includes like standard reboots, and it includes emergencies as well. So they've done an absolutely fantastic job maintaining that. We've had about 28 million threats from a security standpoint to our network over the past year. Of those, about 55,000 have been those that we've deemed actionable, something we actually take some action on. It may be automatic action, but action is taken on them. And we've had 2 that have been very serious. A lot of that is attributed to the work that team does. Some of it's luck, I'll be honest. The security game is a little bit of a game of luck. But being prepared and being ready for these kind of things is really important, and they've really done an outstanding job. We handle about 2 million phone calls a year as well. So the 3 things I want to highlight really quickly is we've completely changed the Wi-Fi in the courthouse. When I first got here, it was the biggest complaint, and the best thing I can tell you about it now is nobody even talks to me about it. So I'm assuming that it's good because that's usually our metric for that. We've replaced our backup and recovery system. That allows us, in the event of a disaster or in the event of data loss, that we're able to recover and get back to working and kind of part of our business continuity plan. Lastly, and probably most impactfully, but not as interestingly, is we keep implementing more high-speed data circuits. The one speaker I did here was Dr. Rascon, talked about the medical examiner. All the things that he's able to do was based on him being able to get fast internet, fast network access. So we're working really hard. We're doing it through a plan. It's got a policy attached to it. We've got a standard that everybody adheres to. We're not doing it willy-nilly. So we're very proud of that. The next group is our project management group. This is led by Luke Gilpin. They've got a proficient rating, so they're doing a fantastic job. They're currently working 24 active projects. They've got 22 that I mentioned earlier that are waiting to have some action done. And that means that each project manager has 6 projects that are going at any given time. They're the 2 projects, they're actually involved in everything that you see here, but the 2 that I highlighted for them were their E-Bonds project, which we were before you a couple weeks ago with the Best of Texas Award. We're very proud of the management, the collaboration. There were multiple departments, multiple agencies that were involved in bringing that about, and that's what project management does for us. And then lastly is the long-term project, which is the ERP system. That system has taken it took about 3 years to implement, and it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears of our project manager to keep things on track and to keep life breathing into that. And kudos to absolutely everybody who was involved in it. It's truly a success. Our software division are probably our all-stars. They are the team that write our programs. They're the team that support our applications. They go out and help individual users with things like Munis and Odyssey. and they're our web developers. So this team is responsible for those 3 major items that we do. They are operating at a very proficient level. We're very happy with their KPI ratings. And before I move on, that KPI rating of 80, you know, I think nobody would say, well, that's kind of a low B, right? Nobody can get 100%. We've made it so difficult that 100% is really not achievable, and that's something that we want. We want to always have room to grow. So I don't want you to read into that it's a low 80, that it's not great. It is really good, but we don't want to be pegged out and don't have any room to grow. They've written 26 custom reports. They have 25 applications that they developed this year, and they've serviced over 5,000 service requests for software help. The 2 applications that I picked for them were the case portal. I think we are all extremely proud of how that has worked out. We're working hard to roll that out to the county attorney's office as well. We love the fact that we're getting some external interest from other counties that they think it's a cool thing, and I couldn't be prouder of the team for that. And the collaboration, again, they worked with other departments to be able to make this happen. Our website development, this one was a little tough for me to put on because we're not done yet. Typically I want to put things that were finished, but they have worked so hard. This is such an impactful project that I wanted to let you know that this project is coming along very well. And this is one of the most collaborative development projects I've seen. We've included every department, we've included you all, we've included the administration, we've included the public, we've included other entities to be able to make sure that we provide a website that that is something we can be proud of and something that'll grow with us. So I kind of kudos to them. We look for an early 2018 release, but it's coming along really well. The really hands and feet of our group is the support division. These are the folks in the blue shirts and the khaki pants that come out and do everything. They deal with our printers, our laptops. You know, if it plugs into the wall, they'll give it a stab. They are just the troopers of our group. They are operating at a very proficient level. Like I said, they handle about 30,000 service calls a year. They manage 4,500 devices, and we perform 750 training activities. The 4 items that this department does, and I'm sorry, this is led by Nanette Olivas, and I'm going to mess up. Software is led by Art Navarez. Nanette and her team are responsible for the training of all of our staff. They hold labs, they hold in-class training, they hold one-on-one trainings, they're doing videos, so they're doing really good work in trying to get our users trained. They do break and fix, so when the computers break, they come out and fix and deploy the applications. They also take your phone calls, so they're the frontline support. They'll take an email, they'll take a phone call, they'll take a text. We're trying to get chat at some point so that we can keep people productive. And then last but not least, there are AV guys, and I'm going right in the camera because I know they're watching. This has been an absolute dream add to our team. They are fantastic. They work really well with everybody else in our group, and they brought a level of creativity that we haven't seen. So kudos to them. Lastly, and it ends very well, is with our administration team, which is led by David Garcia. This team is responsible for pretty much everything else. So they're doing the contracts, the human resources, the procurement. They really are the kind of backbone for me, and they take on any of the crazy ideas that I come up with and at least try and breathe life into them for me. We're doing lots of really wonderful things in administration. We're doing, all of our policy is web-based and it's online, it's collaborative. Every employee can have comments on the policies that we've created. They actually are helping us create the policy, so it's very effective. We're using online communication. We're using basically, Microsoft has created a program called Yammer, which is like Facebook, but it's only for businesses, and we use it exclusively. I haven't sent out a department email to my department 6-8 months. I only use Yammer. Everybody can see my responses. I respond to questions, and I don't have to answer the same question 10 or 15 times. They see it, they can comment on it. I kind of want to get them into my head and see what I'm thinking. And then lastly, our objective measures. I talked enough about those, but those are key, and we keep improving them and moving along. The last thing I want to do is just thank a couple of people. I really want to thank ITD. The staff, the men and women that work in that group are really the most professional, most dedicated, most capable team that I've had the pleasure of working with. And I really appreciate all of you guys. I want to thank my fellow department heads, the elected officials, and pretty much every employee at the county, because they all have such wonderful elan for the county. They push me, and they're not happy with me all the time, and they're demanding, but it's in a good way, and it's always for the betterment of the county. So I'm just really happy with their advocacy. I really have to thank Betsy and the collaboration that she's brought to this. It's really taken my job up another level in terms of enjoyment. I love my job, and she's a big part of that, because she kind of does some of the stuff that maybe wasn't my favorite thing to do in the past, and she gives me direction and just provides some leadership that is very well received. Lastly, I do have to thank you guys. Your dedication to technology, your willingness to allow us to make a mistake once in a while and explain it, not make it again, but your willingness to kind of be tolerant with us and let us be a little bit innovative, not have us hide behind challenges. It is terribly appreciated, and it is not something that happens all the time. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you. Commissioner Harvey?
I don't know why anybody would want your job. I don't know, because it's not the 364 days and 19 hours it works. It's the 6 hours it doesn't. People remember. And I think the fact that so many people have said good things about you, because I think, like you said, if you're ignored, that means you're doing a good job. And the fact that people are actually saying that you're doing a good job says so much more. And I know you have to deal with idiots like me calling it, I don't know how to change my password. I don't know how to, it's not turning it on. Is it plugged in? Of course it, yes. But I just want to say thank you. You've always been very, very quick to help any issues that we've had, so thank you.
Yeah. Commissioners, anybody?
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Really appreciate you and your teams very much. And
of course.
Again, the department after department after department has come up and sung your praises, and it's obvious why.
Thank you so much.
So Chris mentioned Yammer, and so yesterday, late I think it was, after I got back out of here, I used Yammer to share that with the IT team, with the entire county who's on Yammer, just to say, we've heard all week long how awesome ITD is, and it's just so appreciative. I mean, we're so appreciative of what they do and the entire team and the way they work. I can't tell you enough how it's a mutually rewarding relationship working with Chris. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Just wish you'd kick his enthusiasm a little bit.
15
minutes is tough. He's so good.
Ready?
Good morning.
Good morning. Clicker's there, your clicker will drive it.
Yes.
Good morning, Judge Commissioners, Norma Palacios, Public Works Department. I am here by myself, not joined by my staff. I do have a large number of staff. I have 269 employees that are part of my team. We have 46 part-time, 207 full-time, and currently 16 seasonals that take care of the pool. I'm not going to cover a lot of the information. I am providing it as reference material in case we need to go back and look at this. I am going to share, I'm going to try to stay focused on just the major issues. I know you guys have spent a lot of time here. So my department is composed of 4 sections. We have a support services, the road and bridge, the division, maintenance operations division, and parks and events. Public Works is organized into those 4 divisions. The support services division includes a variety of smaller programs managed by the public work departments that are critical to the day-to-day operations of the department and the county. Under the development and flood management, this section handles planning requirements and plan reviews for the department, including stormwater management. Additionally, they handle certificates of compliance, address assignments, address corrections, pavement cut permits, residential inspection programs, traffic studies, and real property donations. Then we have the CIP and engineering services. This section is responsible for capital planning, design, and project oversight for major infrastructure projects. Additionally, we have the OSSF, which is the on-site sewage facility and environmental enforcement section. This section handles state-required sewage and septic system inspections and decommissions, as well as administering an environmental cleanup program for the county. Then we have the infrastructure grant section, which assesses community infrastructure needs and prepares grant proposals. We also have the GIS section, and this is a section that has grown and is now used by a lot of the other departments. In this section, we manage the geographical data and disseminate information and maps as are needed. We have the transportation program section that was transferred to the Public Works Department in October of 2016. This section is responsible for handling programs associated with all modes of travel. And the last section in the support services is a rural planning initiative section. This was also set up in October of 2016, and this was set up to manage neighborhood outreach and implementation, neighborhood outreach and implementation, development of rural sector areas, and identify infrastructure needs by the community. Then we have the Road and Bridge division. This is primarily responsible for the construction and maintenance of over 600 miles of roadway and bridge infrastructure. This division also handles the Fabens Airport, the Port of Entry, the county's water system, and the Ascension and McGill Pauper cemeteries. This is a section that's funded through special revenues from a portion of the vehicle registration fees. Then we have the Maintenance Operation Division. The Maintenance Operation Division is responsible for maintenance and repair services to over 61 county buildings. Over 1,274,689 square feet. It is also responsible for over 600 acres of ground maintenance, and that's the parks, and over 749,000 square feet of jail and other correction facilities. And lastly, we have the Parks and Special Events Division. This division handles or oversees all recreational and special event bookings, programming, and operations for El Paso County-owned parks and recreational facilities. This includes 11 parks and approximately 686 acres of regional parks. It also includes the lake, which is a 50-acre lake, the golf course, and the 10-field, 45-acre baseball and softball sports complex. The Parks and Special Events department or section was transferred over to the Public Works Department in June of 2016.
You do have some department support now.
We do have department support.
No, I mean in here. Before she's like, I'm alone.
Tessa's here to join me.
And Lupe.
And Lupe. And I think Mr. Solly is also listening. So we do have all the staff listening, but as you all know, we always have things happening, and I would hate to bring in the staff when we have flooding issues and cleaning up issues, and so. And that's why I didn't bring a lot of our staff. This map depicts the unincorporated areas or the areas that we currently handle. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 600 miles of roadway. That's approximately 506 square miles. We are responsible for approximately half of all acreage within the entire county. The entire county is composed of 1,011 square miles. And so we handle about half of that within county. Next, I will address our challenges. Our challenges are adequate funding to complete the necessary capital projects, which also includes road maintenance projects and facility improvements. We've been very fortunate that we have a lot of support. We want to thank the court. They've been very supportive of a lot of our projects, but a lot of the projects don't fall in this category, the ones where we need additional funding, such as the stormwater projects, such as funding for the infrastructure for our water system. So even though we get the support, the challenge has been that we don't have the adequate funding to take care of a lot of the needs within the county. We also need additional funding to complete the ADA compliance, to make sure that all our facilities are ADA compliant. There is funding, but we have gone without for so long. We have 61 facilities that we're starting to address some of them, but it's not enough to address all the issues that we have. The other one is funding to invest in the necessary drainage infrastructure, and I mentioned that briefly. This is a big one. We had flooding on Sunday, and I know that Socorro was flooded because of the water that came down from the Sparks area. This is a project that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and our hands are tied. We want to do what's appropriate and what's the right thing to do for the county, but without the adequate funding, our hands are tied. We can't do much except basic maintenance. And so this has been a challenge, a big challenge for us, because the community's asking for the help, and all we can say is we're going to go and pump water.
And can I just add, I think this is why I mentioned on Monday, it's really important that we look holistically at things like our water hookup policy in areas, and you know, Commissioner Perez mentioned the stormwater, on-site stormwater drainage. And are we creating bigger problems? I mean, we already can't deal with what we live with. And are we incentivizing development by, you know, through those hookups on vacant lots that have flooding issues? And so, I mean, I think we need to learn from what people decades ago didn't do. And we, you know, we may have very limited tools to regulate development and to, you know, be able to create safer, healthier developments through regulation. But are there other things we can do that, you know, that ultimately protect landowners over the long term and homeowners over the long term?
And then also continue to pursue methods of funding, continue to pursue, you know, I know the Army Corps of Engineer project basically was ceased, but I mean, we need to continue to look at what other options and to work also legislatively to try to get interest in helping us address the problem.
Ultimately, we're going to have to have a fee. That's what it comes down to, is a fee, stormwater fee that helps us create some pot of money to begin trying to tackle the low-hanging fruit. And at the same time, we have to be conscientious of what we're doing to encourage growth in areas that are in a floodplain or are in the line of, you know, destructive water runoff.
Absolutely. Number 4, the East Montana Water System water meters. That has definitely been a challenge because we're also limited to what we can do. You know, we're not able to provide what is needed for the community, and part of it is also going back to funding. You know, funding to build the infrastructure to be able to provide what is needed to the community. So that's been a challenge. Number 5, vague and limited authority to properly regulate. That's real important to us. And it's been a challenge because We have the limited authority. For example, with adornment subdivisions or fractionalized lots, these are lots that were approved before we had the subdivision rules and regulations. So they're not subject to those rules and regulations. And in essence, we're creating colonias. And we are, how do we prevent this? We don't have the authority to prevent it. And so that's a challenge. Aside from that is when people move in, because these were already established and they were the original owners, they can haul water. And so they move in there and they come to the county requesting the infrastructure that they need. They want street lights, they want signage, they want roads, and there might be one home out there. The cost associated with putting the infrastructure that they need is something that we don't have. And the other one is ponding, and Judge, you touched on that. Our limited authority also on ponding. If the subdivision was not part of a subdivision planning process, our authority is limited. We have some limited authority, but enforcing ponding will not fix the problem. It's going to help us, or it's going to help from the problem getting worse, but there's other issues, that need to be addressed in order to make sure that we properly handle the ponding. And the last one on that bullet, number 3, lack of land use planning authority. This is an inability to properly plan because we don't have that authority. There is no way of us knowing what will be built, what the population density will be, so it's hard for us to plan. Number 6, satisfying expectations from the residents. That's hard for us, and it's definitely a challenge. People expect the same services that they get in the city, and there's no way we can provide that type of service. And some of it is related to funding. There are rules and regulations. They expect us to enforce certain rules and regulations. For example, they say, I don't want that trailer parking in front of my property. We don't have that authority to say, no, they can't park. So that's been also a challenge because it's hard for them to accept, no, and even though sometimes when we explain, they'll accept that, but it's not what they want to hear. And the last one is overcommit. I was hesitant about putting this one, but I think I owe it to our staff. Because we have the expertise and we can and are willing to do the work, a lot of times we overcommit. And this sometimes causes delays. That was time for me?
Oh, go ahead, 5 more minutes. Yeah, that'll be your 5-minute warning.
Okay, this causes delays. Well, there is a significant savings, and I think that in the future, we need to bring this to the court. We can save 40% in labor, but it's going to delay a project. And so I think that we've overcommitted in a lot of the projects because we can't do it in-house and do it for less and be able to do more projects, but that causes other problems. And so those have been our challenges. Our major active projects, I have 42 major active projects, and I think I have 5 minutes. So I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, but I do want to share the projects that we have active. All of them are very important. I did exclude the small projects such as moving a wall, an ADA ramp, which are very important, but small projects. So we have under the East Montana water system, one of them that's real important and you have not probably heard about is the new water rates. We need to establish new water tariffs, and that will probably take effect within the next 6 months. You'll see something on the agenda. We have our infrastructure projects. We have 5 of those, that will provide 515 households or 1,700 residents water. Then we have the wastewater project that will provide wastewater services for 263 homes. We are also preparing some grant applications to be able to fund another project and possibly do additional cleanups. We have the medical examiner rooms. That project will be completed next month. We have the Sparks Arroyo close-up documents. We're working with budget and the auditors to get that addressed. We have the elevator modernization project in the works. We have the El Paso Border Youth Athletic Association partnership. This is to enhance and add a baseball facility to the Gallegos Park. We have the sheriff's roof resolution. We have 2 items pending litigation, which is the sheriff's roof and the sports park. We have we have 3 jail annex projects. The pod expansion will be completed at the end of this month. The other ones are in the works and should be done within the next couple of months. We have the mercury discharge resolution. That's been a problem for a while. We are expecting feedback within the next couple of weeks. We have the project on the 4th floor for the auditors and the IT renovation. We are conducting some analysis on some future projects to see how better address CIP projects. We're talking about big projects, maybe don't qualify for CIP. Projects such as the Coliseum. What do we do about the Coliseum? Drainage problems. So some of these you have heard about it before, but we're doing an analysis to bring back to the court with cost associated with those. We're working on policies to be ADA compliant in our facilities, make sure that we are meeting the requirements. We have a change order policy that will come to the court within the next couple of weeks also. Working on the justice of the peace security improvements. Some of these projects you might have not heard because they're in the initial stages, design stages, before we take to you, but these are active major projects. Such as the Courthouse County Fitness Center. We have a large SWORD project going on at the downtown jail. We have the Casa Ronquillo historical renovation project. We are also looking at the jury hall to upgrade the sitting, the technology on that. We're also addressing the public defender's request for space improvement since they acquired a grant. The Commissioner's Court Suite renovation. Then we have the tax assessor collector request. And similar to his request, we have about 15 other ones pending that I did not include here. We have our comprehensive mobility projects that are in the works. We're actually working on those. Those are 8 of them. And then right below item 25, those are 2 additional transportation projects that came after the comprehensive mobility projects, and those are currently being worked on. Then we have the transit ongoing projects that I brought forward to the court. Those are 11 of them. We have the Tornillo Port of Entry. We have some pending items that we need to wrap up before we call it a complete project. The Westway Park Sidewalks project will be completed in September. The Ascension patch repairs, the first portion was completed, but this is a very important project and we're pending the contract to start the second phase. We have our paving project that will, we're bringing back to the court and should start in August. We have a Mesquite Trail settlement project that is the construction of a road. We have Square Dance road improvements. This will assist the residents there with flooding issues that they have. We have the Hillcrest roadway improvements. This one's necessary to meet the requirements of a grant that we acquired. And then we have our GIS mapping edition. The important one here, well, we have a couple important ones, but the addition of investment zones for the county and addition of historical markers. This is data that's available to anybody here in the county. We have our park projects, Ruben Estrella. That one We needed a water meter that's been given to us. So it's connecting to the water meter and laying out the sod to complete that project. We have Escarate Park enhancements going on. We have the parking garage enhancements. You're going to be seeing a lot of good things happening to the garage. We are implementing a new hardware and software system, also signage within the garage. We are implementing new energy efficiencies throughout the county facilities. The remodeling of the second floor to accommodate the public works staff because we had staff scattered all over. The remodeling of the Fabens Airport restrooms and parking lot improvements there. Replacement of the youth service bathing unit. That one should be completed by next month. We have 11 priorities. In those priorities, all of them are very important. And we address the stormwater, bringing back information to the court to address that. Also implementing our on-site switch facility order. Finalizing agreements with San Elizario so that they can take over the historic regulation. Finalizing our standard operation manuals. Finalizing a comprehensive asset management plan. Finalizing a 10-year capital improvement program for roads, facilities, and other infrastructure. Finalizing a long-term rehabilitation maintenance schedule for all our facilities. Updating the subdivision rules and regulations. Implementing a new East Montana water system, which I mentioned. Identifying new infrastructure strategy and funding for the East Montana water system. And the last one, the development and implement of a pavement cut repair policy. We want to do those repairs in-house. We were having problems with people repairing our roads after they cut it. So we're working on a policy to bring back to the court. And that's one of our priorities. Major accomplishments. Should I? You tell me when it is. I mean, I'll be glad to just.
I would suggest is Norma pick out a couple of them and mention a couple of them. And then the court has this information before them so that we can stay on track.
Okay, yes. On major accomplishments, I have 35 of them. The East Montana water system is a good one because initially we had, and this is only for Colonia Revolucion, initially we were allocated 81 water meters, have been given an additional 69 for that area. So that's a good accomplishment. The Fabens Airport, the community cleanups, that's important. We used to have 2. This year we had 8. The Fabens, the maintenance execution plan for the Fabens Airport. Implementation of the county recycling program. The Tornillo Port of Entry demolition. The Ascension, patch repairs. The recycled concrete based pilot program so that we can make sure what is appropriate to use. Let's see. The implementation of the residential street lighting program. Now we've submitted all our requests to the El Paso Electric, waiting for them to come back and tell us what they can do. So we can move forward with that. The transit grants that were awarded to the county.
You know what, Norma? I'm so sorry. We have a UMC
and that's fine, Judge. You guys tell me.
And it is so impressive the amount of work. It really you kind of listing out everything gives us, I think, a very important perspective about the incredible demands on your department and everything that is on the shoulders of the public works staff and team and you as the interim. And I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I really understand.
And Judge, if I can jump on your comments, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate Norma. She has been, an interim role, I can tell you, is a very tough role to be in. I've experienced it myself. And she has just been such a team player, one of our hardest working, most dedicated employees I've ever had the pleasure to work with. I just can't tell you enough how much I appreciate her. And this is just a snapshot of what's going on there. And I say this all the time, you look at our strategic plan, or you look at you guys know how I live by my little notebook. You go through it and it's public works, public works, public works. Same with our strategic plan. There is so much on this department, and these employees are so dedicated, and they're doing the best they can with what we have. And I really, they're doing more than we even could expect with what we have, and I appreciate that. We know we have more to do, so.
Yes. Commissioners, do you all have any questions for Norma?
A lot of what you touched on reflects, the changing nature of the county and kind of the demographic shift that I think we're seeing, where it's becoming much more urbanized and is placing much more strains on public works. So thank you for all you do.
Norma, thank you so much. Please thank your team. We really appreciate everyone on the team.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. We appreciate all your support.
Thanks. You all have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Start the timer.
And time.
Okay, I'm going to try to make up some time. It's our pleasure to present for County Administration. As you know, I'm Betsy Keller, your County Administrator, and this is Joel Bishop, our Executive Director of Community Services and Criminal Justice, or Justice Support Services. So I'm really pleased to have Joel here with us this year. As you know, he's one of our recent hires, and you'll see he's mentioned as one of our accomplishments. So his hiring of Joel has been just a major blessing to us in our office. I already feel such a relief from the justice side, and I've seen so much progress on the things and community services that Joel has already just jumped right in. I feel like he's been here for years because he's so already ingrained in everything. So thank you, Joel. So we focused a lot on administration, leadership, and strategy. And I want to mention just some of the challenges. I'm not going to go over all of them, but the increased service demands and just also an expectation of quicker responses. Society is now, we expect everything instantaneously. So that's been a challenge. Balancing short-term demands with long-term projects. Are we preventing fires? Or are we putting out fires? That's been an issue for us. Slower, inefficient procedures and overcoming those, changing our culture. That has been very difficult, and it's an ongoing challenge that we're working on. We see some improvements, but we still have work to do. Lack of data has been, of course, an issue. We're expecting more out of our new systems, but it's been challenging up to this point. Developing our workforce is always a challenge. You've heard that from some of our departments. And then lack of long-term plans. We haven't been good at long-term planning. Even Norma mentioned about overcommitting. We all have to get better at showing what's our long-term plans, what are we working on, so that we don't lose sight of the big picture. And I'm going to go over our current and future projects, some performance data that we're working on, and our accomplishments. But instead of show you screens that you all already have copies of in your presentation, I'm going to show you some other slides.
A performance art project.
I'm going to do a performance art project. Joel's going to do a creative dance.
So glad you have Joel. You need Andrew's help. He's really good at creative dance. Nobody but the baby in the corner.
I'm going to show you some pictures from this past couple of years that are mostly from my cell phone, but there are also some from our team. Can you click on that for me, Wally? And I'm going to read over the other items while you're watching the pictures. So our current and future projects include the FY18 budget, judicial reform. What I'm reading doesn't go with the pictures, just so you know. The judicial management measures, public works structure and reorganization is the current project. Federal prisoners in the jail facilities issue is a current project. The binational coordinator, Project United, department visits, Fabens Veterans Park capital investment, the attorney pay plan study, the capital funding reviews, site and release program, county annual report, property acquisition inquiries, economic development processes, special meeting agenda management, FY17 strategic plan progress, review and report, various research projects at the request of members of the court, policies and procedures, strategic orientation for newly elected officials, county board management and compliance, FY18 strategic plan operational oversight, infrastructure needs and debt plan, internal controls and processes audit, land trust options and recommendations, investment policy and options, UMC contract options, customer service evaluation and enhancements, county fair development, department head 360-degree evaluation system, and the chief administrator's evaluation process. We're also working on putting together some performance indicators. These include things such as the amount of phone calls that our office is answering and how many of those go answered directly and how many are answered by an automated attendant. We're tracking that we've completed or in progress on 75% of the strategic action items in this year's strategic action plan. County administration cost per capita, it's about 88 cents per person for out of the county budget for the our office. We're paying about 88 cents per capita. The county administration cost ratio of general fund is 0.02 cents per dollar. We're also tracking the volume of agenda items, the number of meetings, and the percentage of items pulled from consent due to lack of information. For example, we implemented agenda review. In the past 3 years, there were a total of 287 agenda items postponed. In 2015, it was 131. In 2016, it was 125. In 2017, there's been 31. So we believe that the agenda review process is making a bigger impact on the agenda that we are able to present to the court. We're also tracking the number of courthouse visitors and the number of complaints, and that's something we will be reporting on under our performance information going forward. Some of our accomplishments, I'm just going to mention a few of these. Again, you have them in your backup. I'm very proud of the department maps and the planning that departments have done. I'm very proud of the Commissioner's Court and the strategic planning that's been conducted. The Economic Development Director being hired. Again, the hiring of Joel. Our judicial management measures and the progress we've made there. The interviews we've conducted with some of our star employees and the feedback we've received. The relationships that we've created both within the county and within the community. The UTEP lease and the Fairbanks Airport. And also I'm very proud of the briefings that we're providing on a regular basis to Commissioner's Court, both on the agenda and on what's going on in the county. And also on board management and policy development. And also on the county administration reorganization. Another thing also we're very proud of is that we were able to work with the purchasing board. They allowed us to be part of the process in the selection of the purchasing agent, which we believe has been very helpful and important to some of the changes we're making on processes. And then on the most significant accomplishment that I'm most proud of is our department head team. I think you all have seen over this week the work that they're doing, their dedication, and how much this entity and this community means to them. And that's what I am most especially proud of. The department head team, the admin team, and our departments. And when we get through with the slides, which we're very close, I have one last slide with the pictures that I'd like to share. You may recognize some people in these pictures. I don't look good in the hairnet. I gotta keep my day job.
Where's the commissioner's hairnet?
Wally's
I was bored, could you tell?
That's Efren Montalongo from our Veterans Office, being honored at the Veterans Day event. Hoped in teaching leadership. My dog, and now can we switch back to the regular? Okay. So in closing, this is again what I'm most proud of. It's our department head, our admin team, and our departments and the work they're doing. I've had so much support this past year, and I did just complete my first year in my actual chief administrator position in the last couple months. But it's been just the most enjoyable experience. I was very nervous this entire year. I felt very nervous, but I just like wanting to do a good job. But the team has made it so easy for me. The team is, always comes through, and their support is what's made it just a very enjoyable year. And then working for the 5 of you, and I really appreciate it. So that's our presentation. I think we're back on time.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I appreciate any questions you all have.
Commissioners?
It's always a pleasure, Betsy, working with you. I know that my office puts a lot of demands on your, just like everybody else, more than likely.
No, you're the most.
Just
Just kidding.
So it's the ability to work with you, and I know that we tried telecommunicating. But your spot didn't work out so well before, but it's working out really well now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Betsy. That there have been so many challenges that the county faces, and I was talking to a group the other night, and every large organization has huge challenges daily, constantly. It's how we handle them that is what matters and what counts, and whether we're honest about them and transparent about them and have healthy dialogue about them and come to an agreement about how to go forward, and that takes a lot of leadership, and that to me is a fundamental. Everything else, all the experience comes with time, but you have to have that fundamental there, and you have it. And really appreciate you. And Joel, I'm so glad you're here. We really are so excited about the leadership that you're going to bring. And this has been such an important area of reform and transformation for the county for the last couple of years. And the complexity is pretty incredible. You've been, you've attended some of the meetings that I've hosted as we discuss this federal prisoner population issue, and so you've heard the complexities of everything that we face, and but it's exciting to have you here, and to have your knowledge and your experience.
Thank you, and I might this is one of the reasons I came, is because I saw, I did maybe a little more research than and I saw the the structure of leadership that was already in place, and I've seen it in other places all over the country, and this is a very special place to be and work, even though I know the challenges are definitely enormous. And they're unique in some ways, as you just mentioned, but I'm very glad to be here, and even in the 6 or 7 weeks I've been here so far, it's just reaffirmed that I'm glad I made the decision. And I think we have the framework is in place to do really good things in lots of different areas. I'm very thankful to be a part of it. I'm glad you hired me. And hopefully you'll be, a year from now, you'll be able to say the same type of things. So,
absolutely.
Thank you.
And Betsy, one of the last things I'll say is I think a fundamental to this kind of relationship between a governing body and their CAO is trust, and you work very, very hard every single day to maintain it and to grow it, and so I appreciate that. Thank you, Judge.
And I just want to say one more thing, Judge, Commissioners. One of the most adhering attributes that you have is you find ways of saying yes. It's no, we can't do it. No, we can't do this, but we may be able to do this, and it's refreshing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
And you've got a great team.
I have an amazing team. So when I say yes, then they go, oh, they help me figure it out.
All right,
you all.
excellent. Well, thank you. So that's it for our presentations. We're gonna, do we recess this? I mean, no, we
it's
adjourn,
adjourned.
right?
We
Yeah.
adjourn, and then it'll be a brand new meeting.
All right, beautiful.
The meeting is adjourned.